The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice. Hey guys, this is a weekly forecast for April 11th through the 15th of 2022. Okay, let's start off with the NZD-USD pair. Okay, this is a weekly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since this move up right here, starting from this range right here, was solely based on momentum, in the long term I'm short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. And moreover on the lower time frames, since there is strong short strength confirmed at the current moment, in the short term I am also short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by what's been happening with this pair for the last couple of months. So in October of 2021, there was a strong short trade that formed right here. And then about a month and a half later, there was a week long trade that formed right here. And so at this point, the weekly bias was short. Or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. And that main target was hit right here. And so at this point, I'm waiting for another weekly long trade to form so I can measure the strength differential against this last weekly short trade to come up with a new weekly bias, whether long or short. Now, moreover, like I mentioned on the midweek analysis, I took a short entry on Thursday at the 69.08 levels right here with a stop loss at this pivot high and its main target at this point right here. So let me go ahead and explain to you what's happening with that. Let's go over to the daily chart. Okay, so on this daily chart, if you recall on the midweek analysis, I mentioned that the last long trade that formed was right here, while the last short trade that formed was right here. Now, if you recall, I was mentioning that looking from a purely biased standpoint, this long trade was stronger than this short trade. However, since there was already signs of strong short strength on the lower time frames in these areas right here, I was saying if there is lower time frame confirmation of strong short strength, I will make this daily bias into short. Or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. Now, roughly 2 days ago, there was confirmation of strong short-term short strength. And so I took a short entry at the 69.08 levels, roughly around here, with the stop loss at this pivot high and the main target being right down here. Now let me go ahead and show you that lower time frame confirmation that led me to take this short entry. So let's go over to the 5-minute chart. Okay, so on this 5-minute chart, that daily short trade formed in this area right here. And then right after that, there was trend line confirmation of strong short strength. And that was from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now there was a breakout, an immediate break back in with signals, normal, long strength. However, price pulled right back down to the pivot low where that normal long strength was created and thus creating strong short strength. And so at this point, since strong short strength was confirmed, I took a short entry right at these levels right here with the same risk parameters I showed you earlier. Okay, and let me zoom out real quick. Okay, so after I took that short entry roughly at these levels right here, there was no confirmation of opposing long strength all the way down to these levels, where actually there was confirmation of 1 hour strong short strength, further confirming this daily short bias. And so price fell all the way down to these levels, where at the current moment there is still no signs of strong long strength, so I am maintaining this short position. Alright, however, that said, like I mentioned earlier, looking at this setup from a purely daily bias standpoint, there is more strength long on that daily chart. So if there is 1 hour and above strong long strength confirmed, I will abort this short entry and moreover change that daily bias into long. So let me go ahead and show you the levels I'll be looking for in terms of this trade management. So let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, again, I took that short entry at 69.08, roughly around here, with the stop loss at this pivot high and the main target still being at this level right here. Now, price is right at a very strong 4-hour trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now, the next level I will want to see some further 4-hour strong short strength is at this trend line with a break out of it and then immediate break back in, signaling normal long strength. However, if price could pull right back down to that pivot low where that normal long strength was created, that would show strong short strength. And then at that point, perhaps we could get a nice fall all the way down to that main target at that point. Okay, so let me just wrap this up for you on the daily chart. Okay, so on this daily chart, the last short trade that formed was right here, and the last long trade formed right here. And for the time being, the bias is short, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. However, that said, interpreting this bias strictly from a daily strength standpoint, this long trade does have more strength than this short strength. However, as you guys know, in terms of biases, the lower time frame confirmations have the ultimate say in terms of the direction of a higher time frame bias, which at this point is still saying that this daily bias is in fact short. And so at the current moment, I'm still willing to take this short entry all the way down to its daily bias's target right here. However, I'm always watching for any 1 hour and above strong long strength to form on the lower time frames, in which case I will change this daily bias from short into long, and moreover take a long entry with the main stop loss now at this level right here and its main target at this pivot high. Okay, so I'll keep you guys updated on how I manage this trade on the communities tab and the midweek analysis. Alright, so let's go on to the Euro-Yen pair. Okay, and if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of weekly biases and lower time frame confirmations, please watch my price action trading course, for that course is designed to provide you the necessary information so you can learn how to trade price action. Okay, this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So since there was monthly confirmation of strong long strength with trendline breakout confirmation of this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here, as you can see, there was a breakout and immediate break back in showing normal short strength. However, price came right back up and just recently reached that pivot high where that normal short strength was created, thus creating strong long strength. Thus, since this monthly chart is in the beginning stages of strong long strength, in the long term I am long biased right back up to this pivot high right here. And now moreover on the weekly chart, since there was a strong long trade that formed right here, and this week, a weak short trade formed right here. In the short term, I'm also long biased, right back up to this pivot high right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by what's been happening on this pair for the last couple of months. So since there was a long trade right here that formed back in 2020, and then last year at this point right here, there was compact short price action that formed, which shows strong short strength. At this point, the weekly bias was short, or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. And so price fell all the way down to these levels right here, where a strong monthly gap level exists right through these areas. And so price pulled all the way back close to that stop loss level for a great short entry opportunity, with a minimal stop loss at this pivot high right here, and moreover went on a second attempt to get through that gap level. However, price again pulled all the way back to these levels, where again there was a nice opportunity for a short entry with the stop loss at this pivot high right here again. And on this attempt, price got through that gap level, however formed a strong long trade right here that was stronger than this compact short price action that formed at this level right here. And so at this point, the bias became long, or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low, and that main target was hit at this point right here. Now, moreover, this week there was another short trade that formed on this weekly chart at this point right here, which was again weaker than this previous long trade. So the weekly bias is still long, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. Okay, and in terms of trade setups, now at this point it is highly unlikely for price to pull all the way back down to these levels right here for a long entry with a stop loss at this pivot low. So I am looking for mid-road long entries along with this weekly long bias. Okay, so let me show you what I'll be looking for. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, try drawing this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now, as you can see, there was a breakout and immediate break back in. However, this break back in's close is very difficult to determine whether this is a legitimate trendline confirmation breakout. So if this close was a tad bit lower, roughly around here, well, this will be an obvious trendline breakout confirmation setup. Now, if this was the case, that would show normal short strength, and if price could pull right back up to stop out that pivot high where that normal short strength was created, that will create strong long strength, and thus that would be a mid-road long entry for me with a stop loss at the pivot low where price turned, and its main target at that weekly bias's pivot high up at higher levels. However, since as you can see, since this trendline breakout closed back in, legitimacy is not obvious, I'm going to have to watch the follow-through price action to see whether this trendline breakout confirmation is legitimate to begin with in order to take that mid-road long entry. So I'll keep you guys updated on the midweek analysis on whether or not this breakout was legitimate. However, there are other trend lines I'm looking at for these mid-road entries, so let me zoom out real quick. Okay, another trend line I'm looking at is from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now, if we could get a clean breakout and a clean break back in, creating normal short strength, but if price could pull right back up to that pivot high and create strong long strength, that would be a mid-road long entry setup with the stop loss at this pivot low and its main target at that weekly bias's pivot high, which is right here. However, like I mentioned on the overview, there was strong monthly long strength confirmed just recently at this point right here. So I will be considering extension targets beyond this level if a long entry sets up. Okay, so let me wrap this up on the weekly chart. Okay, so on this weekly chart, the last long trade that formed was right here, while the last short trade that formed was right here. And the current weekly bias is long, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. So I'll be waiting for possible mid-road long entries even as price pulls back to these levels, for it is highly unlikely that price will fall all the way back down to these levels for a long entry. And now moreover, monthly strong long strength was confirmed right at this price level right here. So if I do get a mid-road long entry, although the main target is at this weekly bias's target at this point right here, I'll be more than willing to extend partial positions right up to at least this pivot high right here. Okay, so I'll keep you guys updated on whether or not I get that mid-road long entry on the midweek analysis. Okay, so that's it for the weekly forecast. Now I just wanted to remind you guys that the point of this channel is to provide you real-time price action analysis and trading, and furthermore support you with price action knowledge through the lessons in the courses, so you can eventually learn how to read price on your own and become a successful trader. And moreover, I want to remind you that this is not a signal channel, for I believe relying on signal providers will ultimately lead to trading failure. Now, relying on signal providers, well, you may make a little bit of money in the short term, but in the long term, it is highly likely that you're gonna give it all back. And like I always say, what's the point of making money this year only to give it back 2 or 3 years down the line? Now, I just don't want to see you guys waste your hard-earned money, and more importantly, waste your valuable time. Okay, so just know that I'm here for you guys, and if you have any questions about trading, please leave it in the comments section, or join me on Discord and we could discuss your trading issues. Okay? Alright, so I hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for watching, guys. Okay, bye!